If somebody's listening right now and you want to get information out of people, the more sensitive the information that you need, the less questions you should be asking. With 90% of the people that I coach, especially high impact leaders, this is the biggest problem.
He's a behavioral science expert who's cracked the code on influence, persuasion, and human behavior. From training Navy SEALs to teaching Fortune 500 CEOs, Chase Hughes shows leaders the hidden psychology that drives every decision.
With your background, with your training, how can we build our confidence?
Maybe one of the most valuable things that anybody can hear listening, especially if you own or run a business. There's a company I worked with maybe a year ago, but I said, I can add one sentence. I won't even change your sales script. I'll increase your results. I'll add one sentence to the very beginning. And it made them $10 million in 1 month. And here's the sentence.
Wow. Didn't think you were going to go that direction. So, Chase, you're such an interesting guy and such an interesting background. I'd love to know if a high schooler was sitting with you and going to do a term paper on you. How would you describe what you do now to that high school kid?
If I'm talking to a high school kid, I say that everything in your life, even if you think AI is going to take over and all this stuff, everything in your future life is going to be human to human interaction. From parenting, dealing with managers, sales, bosses, having a leadership role, everything is about human interaction. And everything boils down to whether or not you could read the room, you could communicate based on what you read, and you have some mastery over yourself, and that you're in control and you have that confidence and authority to carry yourself. And that's what's going to make success happen.
And that's what you do now. You advise a lot of different people on those topics, correct?
Yes, sir. I certainly do.
How did you go about getting into this coming from the military?
So I chose this path when I was 19 years old. I joined the military when I was 17. And 19 years old, stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. We're at a kind of like a bar down in Waikiki Beach. And I asked some girl out, and she essentially just said no. She was a little rude about it, and it hurt.
Yeah.
It actually hurt. And I remember going home and typing into Google, how to tell when girls like you, and printed out this big stack of paper and just trying to I was just trying to kind of avoid rejection again, just because that left a pretty good sized wound. And I got obsessed with this people reading stuff. And over time, it became addictive because I started getting less and less nervous in conversations with other people because I realized everyone is suffering. Everybody's having this imposter syndrome. Everybody's has these insecurities. They might be different, but everybody's got these things. And it was years before I realized it's just a universal condition. And I think it kind of deleted social anxiety for me, which I had as a teenager. And just being able to see everyone is screwed up, so to speak. We're all screwed up. And most of us are just trying to hide it. And just being able to kind of see behind that mask really became addictive for me. And I got addicted to the behavioral side of things, and then worked in some detainee operations and stuff like that. And I got obsessed with the interrogation side and what can happen in a conversation. And essentially, it sounds unusual outside the interrogation context, but how can a person get someone to do something that might not be in their best interest? So yeah, it's some of my military experience comes in, but a lot of what I studied and obsessed over during my entire career is definitely here.
My methodology that I've developed in the Get Clear career assessment is if you know what you do best and you use it to do something you love, a task or a role, to produce a result through that role that matters deeply to you, you are in fact living on purpose and you're going to be doing meaningful work.
I love that.
Your talent. What are your top 2 or 3 talents, in your words, that allowed you to do a self-study and a deep dive that you just described and make you good at this?
I think the talents were something I developed as a result of learning some of these things. And I think one of the best talents you can have if you want to be successful in any business is empathy. And I will absolutely call empathy a talent that is not God-given, that is something I think that anybody can cultivate. And I think the better you get at understanding people, if you're not a sociopath, it's going to make you develop some kind of empathy. And I think that's one of the top things that you can have. And the second is just being obsessed with seeing behind the mask and understanding that if you modify your worldview to understand that there's a whole nother world out there that people can't see behind the mask that people wear, and seeing that without any kind of judgment, that is the true essence of what I would describe as like the key talents here. I think the fastest way to change your life is to change how you see the world.
Okay, so let's act as if someone came under your mentoring and you and they admittedly said, on a scale of 1 to 10, my empathy is about a 0. What would you do practically, tactically, to guide them to grow that empathy muscle?
So there's a 2-stage process for this. So stage 1, we have this thing called an animal behavior profiling chart that I developed for kids who were maybe on the spectrum and needed to understand why people did what they did. But one of the animals on there is a Chihuahua. And why do we have a Chihuahua on there? Well, Chihuahuas are barking all the time. You get close to them, they might snap a little bit. But why are they barking? And I would talk to the client and say, why are they barking? What is the reason? Because they're tough? Because they're strong? So I go through all these things, and we finally get down to fear. They're scared. So we see, like, I'm showing them posturing behavior that some people do where I'm trying to be on top, and I'm aggressive, loud. That's a fear behavior. That's not like confidence or anything like that. So I start showing them a behavior that used to piss them off, and then saying, here's what's under that. Like, here's the reason behind that. And the second element of this is, in your everyday life, if you can start spotting these behaviors, you're not just seeing an adult who's scared, you're seeing a little script that got written when they were 8 or 9 years old that said, I will never let anybody hurt me again. And I think that gets addictive, because if you get someone's worldview to start seeing people as reasons instead of just like broken, he's a, they'll call him a bad name. But the reason behind that, and they'll see that little childhood script, I definitely think that changes the world for people.
It's so true, isn't it? When the first time you realize you can like somebody that has diametrically opposed political beliefs or religious beliefs. That shocks a human the first time you go, well, I thought they were going to be like this, and I actually just had a real human conversation with them, and turns out I like them even though I hardly agree with them on anything.
Yeah, and we share so much common ground, not just on like, oh, here's what I want for the next election, but here's what I'm carrying in here, and here's all the things, like, if it gets really real, here's all the things that I'm kind of hiding, because our number one fear as human beings, and I train a lot of people that do this venture capital stuff where they get pitched all the time by people, private equity, that's what they call it. And I train them to spot like the BS in these guys that are pitching them. And there's so much. The first thing I train them to do is like when someone is in performance mode versus conveying information and being in a conversation. And rarely we can get to the point where we're actually realize that like other people are carrying way more than you think. And it's however similar you think you are to somebody else, it's 10x minimum.
Okay, so before we move on, I do want to ask you about the tool of using a question. So much about what experts like you and people who can really understand people is they learn how to ask questions, and not just random questions, but specific questions. Speak to that, and again, teach us. We got professionals right now. Take them to the chalkboard here. Take them to the whiteboard. How to use questions to become more empathetic and to get underneath the surface like you've been talking about.
So let's say, Ken, you and I are standing in a Whole Foods, and we're standing in the produce section, and I say, Ken, I've got a project for you, a challenge for you. There's a young lady over there stocking some baby carrots.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to walk over there to her, and in 60 seconds, you have to find out how much she makes for a living.
Wow.
And then part B of this challenge is you're not allowed to ask a single question. And you have 60 seconds. So if you walked up and you did ask a question, now you're kind of a weirdo, right? Because you're going up and say, hey, how much do they pay you? Because we don't talk about that, right? Like sex and money and all this stuff. We have all these taboo subjects in this society. But if I went up there and I said, hey, I can't find the cucumbers. She's like, oh, they're right over here. I'll show you. I'll walk you over there. And as we're walking this 20 feet or whatever it is, I say something like, you know, I just read online, I can't remember where it was, that everybody here got bumped up to $25 an hour. That's fantastic. Congratulations. And she looks at me like, what? No, we only make $19.50. That's only managers make $25. So I triggered a need in her that we all have as people to correct the record, to kind of correct some inaccurate information. And if somebody's listening right now and you want to get information out of people, or you're in the business of leadership, the more sensitive the information that you need, the less questions you should be asking. So you need to get really good at what's called elicitation. And this was created by a guy named John Nolan for the CIA and other intel people. But when someone says something, if we respond with a question, like what's called a provocative statement is, I bet that's challenging, or I can imagine that you enjoy that, or I can imagine there's a tremendous amount of job satisfaction right there. Or we use like a summary. Someone says something and we say, so you guys have been doing this a long time and everybody here is kind of an expert in their field. They're going to keep going and keep going. And every once in a while, just a little bit of disbelief. They say some kind of big, cool thing that happened. And you're like, no way. There's no way that happened that fast. And then you get more information and more information. So getting good at responding to statements with statements that are provocative. Not provocative as in they stir the pot. Just provocative as in like they evoke a response out of the person. So if you go back to the grocery store, she did not classify me as kind of weirdo because I wasn't asking about her income. I just used a provocative statement which triggered a need to correct the record. And that's not the entirety of the techniques, but that's one of them that's very powerful. And when we give up sensitive information, when it wasn't in response to a question, we feel as if we volunteered it, and we automatically start viewing that person in a different category than everybody else. So even if you and I are in the back of an Uber and I say, yeah, I heard Uber's like super high on job satisfaction, the Uber driver's going to turn and be like, what? You know, and then he's going to start talking in a way that he doesn't talk to other Uber drivers with. I'm automatically in the unconscious part of his brain in the like a friend area. This is like friends and family. So I get way different behavior because sensitive information is coming out without an interrogation. And I would say the number one problem that people face when I coach them is we have a tendency in our brain that when we need information from another human being, I need questions. I have to ask questions to get it out. And that's the hardest to resist, is just that, can I stop myself from asking questions and just use some statements like, that sounds fascinating. I bet there's a lot involved with that. And just using those statements.
Okay. You know what? You turned the tables on me because I'm a big fan of curiosity and questions. But I learned something there, and I think that's great. And I love that. Let's stay here. Let's go to a real life situation, because you mentioned it. Let's go deeper. Let's have you role play this or give us a tactic here.
Let's do it.
So we got leaders, okay? We got leaders listening and watching now, and let's take them to a difficult conversation. They've got to get some information. They're trying to read this person on their team, whatever it is, but it is not, to your point, it's sensitive, and asking questions is going to put them on the defensive, of course. That's a very real scenario between someone who is working for you. What would be a couple of phrases or what would be a couple techniques there using this elicitation?
So if it's someone that I know, I may start with a few things that are true. And I want their unconscious part of their brain to kind of say, Yes, I agree. So I might start our conversation with, Ken, you've been working here for 18 months. You've really hit the ground running. I know everybody on your team likes you. So I'm saying things that you're going to agree with. So let's pick up right there. I know everybody on your team likes you, but I would imagine that there are some challenging things going on where you're working right now. So instead of me asking, I'm just saying, I would imagine this is happening. Or I might even start softer and I say, but I imagine it's not the easiest job in the world. And they'll say, oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's some drawbacks. And then right when they respond, it might be a small response. I was like, drawbacks are always part of business, but sometimes they can be bigger than others. And then I'll get another response. And I'll say, what? If it's something big, I might say, what? There's no way. I've never heard of that happening here. I would never imagine Lisa would do anything like that. And you say, oh, yeah, it's even worse than you thought. And I'll get more information from that.
Yeah, now that's beautiful. That's a masterclass. I love that. And if I'm learning here, this technique is allowing them to take ownership because they feel like you actually want to know, that you've invited them in with that state, even though it wasn't a question, that statement of I imagine. It feels, even though it was role play, I felt like you were inviting me in because you're going, I imagine, but that's not a certainty statement by a leader.
Right.
And I think certainty just kind of shuts people down. Is that true or false?
I think that's absolutely true. And certainty is very easy to disagree with.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't disagree with what I imagine.
Yeah.
So when I train people one-on-one, I train a lot of executives, I train people in Congress, and one-on-one, the first thing I have them do is watch a couple episodes of Andy Griffith. So I think that is like the baseline. Let's start with this baseline of being in composure, because like composure has got to be the first thing that you learn. Because there's two opposite ends of composure. We have collapse and we have posturing. So collapse and posturing are both perfect examples of Barney Fife. One minute he's big tough guy, the other minute he's like submitting his resignation for the 33rd time that month.
That's right.
And the composure stays there. And as a leader, when you have composure and then you use some of these provocative statements, it is a wildly different environment than if I have an employee come in, I'm like, yeah, come in, sit down. And I'm kind of posturing to just remind them that I'm in charge. I'm the one in control here. As a corollary to that, that's why we're using those statements of I imagine, or I would guess, or I think anybody in X position would probably go through X, Y, and Z. So I'm using those almost presumptive statements or just imagination statements like that.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We look for help or support in some weird places sometimes. Come on, I can admit it. I've probably shared a little too much information to a stranger who could do nothing with it. And I'm sure you have too. And it's kind of fun sometimes to talk to a stranger about everyday stuff, but when you need help with relationships, anxiety, depression, or other clinical issues, your pickleball partner probably doesn't have the right answers. You need real guidance from a licensed therapist with a strict code of conduct. And that's why I recommend reaching out to my good friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp's the largest online therapy provider in the world, which means no matter what you're facing, chances are they've got someone who specializes in exactly that. And because it's totally online, it makes it easy to fit therapy into your busy schedule. All you have to do is answer a few easy questions, nothing intense, and they'll connect you with a licensed therapist who will fit your needs. Plus, if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time for no extra cost. But because they've been matching people and therapists for over 10 years, and their 4.9 rating shows they usually get it right the first time. So find the right one with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Ken to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Ken. I want to give you some professional scenarios. and let you guide us, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about a high stakes meeting. Okay. So high stakes. You can interpret that, folks, however you want to interpret that, but there's a lot on the line here, probably some tension in the room or potential tension. How can someone come into a meeting like that and grab an advantage by reading everybody else in the room? Take us through how you would coach us.
If you're my client, the first thing, what we talked about earlier, is if I change my worldview, most of the time, the results that I'm looking for are a byproduct of me changing how I see the world. That's almost it. So the first thing I'm going to do is change your view of what's going on in your body right now and say, Ken, I know you're nervous about this. You told me you're a little bit nervous about this meeting coming up. Explain to me the symptoms of nervousness. And then you would say, well, a little tight in my chest. I'm kind of thinking about all the ways this could go wrong, thinking about all the ways that it might go right, that I want it to go right. My heart beats a little fast. And I would say, explain how any of those things are different than being excited. So we're kind of like just your worldview is shifting a little bit. And then once we have a little bit of understanding of like my body is just ready for the meeting, that's all that's happening, I have to get you into the perfect mindset. And this is how I coach lawyers that are going to trial. This is people that are going into high stakes negotiations. If you can go into that room and outspeed everybody, you want to challenge yourself to move slower than everyone else in the room. That's your number one challenge. So I would hopefully prepare you at a lower stakes environment. Like, can you move slower than the waitress at TGI Fridays? Let's practice there first.
Okay.
But then our brains are wired to compare and contrast things. When we're children, we learn light is light because dark is there. We learn hot and cold. We learn opposites. The problem is with 90% of the people that I coach, especially high impact leaders, this is the biggest problem. They view the world through hierarchy and status. And that is the most destructive thing to persuasion or influence or gaining any kind of authority in a room. So I'm kind of rewiring their brain to start this comparison process of, can I be slower than them? That's all. And if you truly get to a place of not viewing the world as hierarchy and status, that means you also are going to treat that waitress at TGI Fridays exactly the same as you're treating these people across the table. We are in the business of manufacturing gut feelings in other people. And we're doing it whether we like it or not. We're doing it all day long. So what we really want to do is send the right signals and the right gut feelings. And the fastest way to do that is the hack to do that is, can I speak slower than the other person? Can I move slower than the other person to kind of slow down my physiology? If Ken, you and I walk into a piano store, you're still my client here. Let's say it's a big piano store. They've got giant pianos all over the place. And I go up to this one piano in the middle of the room and I slam my finger down on that middle key, which is a C. It's going to send this sound wave out in the room. And if you walk over to those other pianos and just stick your hand down on the strings, like, when you flip the top thing up, just kind of feel all the strings, they're all dead still except for the C string on all the other pianos. It's the same with tuning forks. Only the one that matches what you hit is going to vibrate. Even 100 yards away, a tuning fork will vibrate. So this happens in us too. And psychologists call this social resonance. And if I speak from a place of insecurity, I might be speaking to that not sure place in you. So the thing that I have every one of my clients learn on day one is, where I speak from is where I will speak to. So if it's a feeling of loss or lack, that's exactly what I'm speaking to in the other person. So to get to a place where we're managing that well, let's try, and I know it's a big ask, but let's start living off camera like we do when we're on camera. And let's bring the part of myself I want to talk to in the other person is who I need to bring into that room. And once I go into that room, we're back to that speed limit. I'm going to move slower than everybody. I'm going to speak a little bit slower, and I'm going to just be more centered, more composure than the other person.
You've said so far, I want to make sure that I'm hearing you. I understand the speak slower, and you said move slower. So that's any kind of hand gestures, the head nods, all of the things, okay? Is it also processing slower? Not jumping to conclusions? I wonder if does that have anything to do with the being slower, or is it just limited to those two suggestions?
I just limit it to those two, because if I can
Okay.
get them to physically slow down their body and their words, then their brain is also going to follow along. And their brain is going to start producing a chemical called GABA. It's a neurotransmitter that just tells everything to calm down. And that neurotransmitter is like the safety chemical, is what some people refer to it as. That's what dumps out in our brains when we get hypnotized with a hypnotist. When we watch a really good movie, we have a flood of GABA that comes into our brain. So we're tricking the body to start releasing that safety chemical. And they've done these experiments where people, with 13 actors and one person that's a volunteer, they'll sit in a burning room long enough to die of asphyxiation because no one else is leaving. And it's terrifying, but that fear of judgment is one of our biggest fears, which is why that you and I, you're about to go into this meeting, we go through this big exercise of and this is exactly what we call it. What are the potential social injuries that I will receive in this room? And we will put it on black and white right in front of your head so there's no anxiety. And you know the social injury. And the more open we are to social injury, the more confident we can be.
Okay, I want to give one other scenario, and I think the advice you just gave us is no question going to help in this scenario. But I want to get your thoughts on how people can read the other person better in this scenario, because it's the one with all the data that says it's one of the most stressful things people do, and that's a job interview, right? Maybe you're up for a promotion, or maybe you're a kid coming out of college and it's your first shot at being an adult. There's a lot riding on these moments, a lot of rejection here in a job interview, just like you shared. Thoughts, suggestions on how to read the interviewer so that you're able to see maybe what they're saying, why they're saying it. What would you tell us?
So if I'm just giving you training before you're going in, I'm not going to teach you to look for 10 signals. That's too much. I'm going to overload your brain, and it's too much cognitive stuff. So we look in other people's eyes most of the time when we're in conversation. So I'm going to teach you how to profile stress and focus in a person's eyeballs. And this is called blink rate. And blink rate is a measurement of how often we are blinking. And typically in normal conversation, the blink rate is between 12 and 15 blinks per minute. And if we experience stress, and this is universal across human beings, across cultures, and that's the great thing, because there's some things like gestures and things like that are way different in some other culture. But this blink rate thing, it's unconscious. We're not aware of it going up or going down. And it's so reliable because of that. So high blink rate is a stress indicator. You're not just looking for a high or a low blink rate. You're looking for changes to that blink rate. That's the trick that will turn you into a profiler. When am I seeing a shift? When the blink rate is high, it's about an 80 per minute during high stress.
Wow.
And it's something you could see, like if you and I were sitting at the Atlanta airport right now, with 100 people around us at a gate somewhere, I could show you someone's blink rate that's 50 feet away. And you don't have to count, and I promise nobody has to count, but you could look over there and be like, yeah, that looks faster than normal. And you would intuitively know that looks pretty fast. And then we kind of get to the slow blink rate. And that's what you want. If I'm in a leadership position, I'm in a job interview, it doesn't matter what situation. I want the blink rate to be as slow as possible, because slow blink rate is not relaxation, it's focus.
And so we can do that. So if we're sitting in the interview and I'm the interviewee, so I'm the one trying to win the job or see if I want the job, right?
Right.
And I start to see a little bit faster than normal blink rate, what do I do with that information?
So here's the procedure to use this. So step one, we start the conversation. Hey, Ken, I'm Chase. We shake hands and we start talking, and I'll get a little feel for, does the blink rate look pretty normal, pretty slow, or pretty fast? So if it's fast, I have one goal: to reestablish your focus and interest in what's going on. And I'll start seeing it slow down and blink less often and less often. And that's my goal. But if I'm in the middle of our conversation, let's say we're talking about contracts or sales figures, or you ask somebody about a credit score after you kind of go through this thing and they're doing an application. The moment that I'm talking about something and I see your blink rate go up, I will change the subject very quickly. So like if you're saying, well, tell me about this project, and I have this great story, but I see the blink rate go up, I know that the story is too long and you're losing interest rapidly. I know instantly I'm gonna wrap it up as fast as possible, or change the subject, or ask a question back to clarify something, to reestablish that person's focus. Wow. So as you speak on stage pretty often.
Yes.
And I do too. The last crowd I talked to was probably like, 2,200 people. But right off the stage, I can see the people that are kind of sitting in that front row. They're all like these like round tables, but some of them are kind of like turned. But you can see you're making eye contact every time you're looking around. So if I'm constantly making eye contact, I can average the whole room out. So I can see as a room whether or not I'm seeing more often or less often blinking. So I know as a speaker, the moment I see that blink rate start going up, I'll walk to the other side of the stage, I'll change the slide, I'll change the topic, I'll raise my voice, I'll jump down into the main area off the stage. I'll do something to reestablish focus so I can grab it and then lead it again. Because you can't lead someone's focus unless you know how to capture it. And the way that we measure captured focus is in low blink rates. So if you see blink rates slowing down and kind of staying pretty slow, you're doing a pretty good job.
I talk a lot about bringing your best to work, but let's get real for a moment here. It's hard to bring your best when you're dragging through the day because you didn't sleep well. And for a lot of people, it's not just because of the mattress they're sleeping on, it's because of what's in the mattress. Most beds are full of junk like polyurethane foam, synthetic fibers, chemical flame retardants, and that stuff might save you a few bucks, but it also traps heat and it releases toxins into the air in your house. That's not good, and that is one of the many reasons why I love my avocado green mattress. These are made with certified organic materials, no chemical junk, no petroleum-based foam, just natural latex, wool, and cotton that help me sleep cooler, deeper, and healthier. And you're not sacrificing comfort either, because Avocado's mattresses are supportive and comfortable. You can even take a quick quiz on their site to find the right fit for your sleep style, firm, medium, or plush. So don't settle. Upgrade your sleep and your health. Head to avocadogreenmattress.com/Ken today and get $50 off with the code KEN50. That's avocadogreenmattress.com/Ken and use the code KEN50. Avocado. Dream of better. I want to talk about influence. Influence is something that, I think everybody understands the word. People that want to move up in life, certainly professionally, leaders who want to lead effectively. Healthy influence is good. I have to ask, what are some, you're great at like one thing, by the way. You're like a samurai giving us like this one thing, do this. If you were going to coach somebody, hey, I need to grow my influence, Chase. Maybe it's a young worker. You can take it wherever you want to. What's a maybe a micro habit or an action that you would recommend to begin to gain influence? And I like that word gain, because you earn it. What comes to the top of your mind when I ask that?
I think just understanding the fundamentals of what influence truly is, because no one really tells you. I'm going to give you more clarity than you've ever had in your life. If you're good at influence, that means you're good at building. So like a person at the start of a conversation, we're in this large open space. And if I'm good at influence, I can start building a little wall that comes out here and building a little wall that comes out here. And the outcome is right there at the end of the hallway that I want you to take. So one wall is made up of cognitive dissonance. Let's call it this wall. And another wall is made up of anxiety. And I'll get into that in a second. Why do we say anxiety? And then there's two things that are in the hallway. This is agreements and rewards or payoff. And that's it. That's a map of human influence. So we have cognitive dissonance. This is, I don't want to act in a way that I haven't said that I am. I agreed that I was this type of person, or people know me as an a-hole. I'm not going to all of a sudden go down to being this one type of person because I've got this reputation. That's cognitive dissonance. And on the anxiety side, this is the most powerful wall here. This is us being afraid of judgment is number one. Like that is the number one human fear. But there's 4 things that enable you to influence another person. And it's the same 4 things, whether you're training a dolphin or a dog or a human. It's the same 4. And it spells out the word fate because it is our fate. And it's focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Those 4 things. So, and they're listed in order of importance. So if I can't establish focus, then no matter how much authority I have, it's meaningless. And if I don't have any authority, I can't affect a tribe. Even if I'm just you and me, I can still use language that suggests a tribe is doing something. But if I have no authority, the tribe is meaningless when I talk about it. And if the tribe isn't there, you're not able to experience emotion because you're not really putting yourself in someone else's shoes. There's not empathy there. You're not feeling a fear of regret or scarcity. So that's where the emotion is. So the anxiety comes in to play where if I am not focused on something that might be important, I might die. So our ancestors were walking down a trail and they hear a stick break behind a bush. 100% is right there. Not on their kids, not on their tribe. Everything's right there. That's focus. It's a big deal. So something unexpected happens. This is what I teach my clients to do is the first step of influence is how can I get someone's unconscious brain to say, wow, I didn't expect that to happen. The moment I can subvert some kind of expectation, I cut your script off. And our brain runs on scripts. And this is maybe one of the most valuable things that anybody can hear listening, especially if you own or run a business. When we are running these scripts, and they are so common, and I'll give you an example of a script right now. So like your number is not something you share with a bunch of people. I'm the exact same way, but I still get like, I'll pick my phone up and it'll have some random number, and sometimes I'll pick it up within 2 seconds and think of this, the last time you answered a call, it's like, hello, Ken, this is Jennifer. I'm with, instantly your brain says, oh, it's a sales call, hang up or get off. And so you have this urge, this instinct to hang up. Even if it was like Publishers Clearinghouse and you won the big boy. We have the script that says, I need to get the hell off this call. So the moment that I speak in a way that triggers a script in that person's brain, then they're going to borrow from every previous experience that they've had. If I speak in a way, they're like, wow, this is different than I expected it to be. They don't have a script to default to. And there's a company I worked with maybe a year ago that had a sales script and they do telemarketing stuff. But I said, I can add 1 sentence. I won't even change your sales script. I'll increase your results. I'll add 1 sentence to the very beginning. And it made them $10 million in 1 month, this company. And here's the sentence. And I'm not on an NDA, thank goodness. So the sentence is, hey, oh crap, I'm so sorry. My dog just spilled my coffee and it got on my computer. I'm so sorry. 1 second. That's it. And then the person's like, they've never heard a sales call that started like that. So their brain said, I'm not prepared for what's here. I need to focus more. The moment the brain says, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, or this is slightly different than what I expected, we gain a tremendous amount of focus. And I would say as a leader, and as a person who is gaining influence, like you said, focus is your primary currency. It is the standard currency that you need to get really good at first.
Wow. Didn't think you were going to go that direction. That's really interesting because that's the tip of the spear. Is that correct?
It is the
focus.
tip. Yeah.
And then once we get the focus, then we have a chance to actually build more of that influence.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I want you to talk about stepping into someone else's frame because I love that concept and I'd love for you to unpack that for us.
So when people say frame, it's typically the perceived definition of an interaction. Because other people say it's the way you see the world. It's not. It's the way you see this interaction, not the world. So a social frame is kind of what I'm talking about anyway.
Yes.
But it's the person who decides what the interaction means. And if I define the interaction, that means I define context. So really quickly, when we're talking about context, just to give you a quick example, there's a hypnosis guy that got in trouble in the 1950s, comedy hypnosis club. There's an off-duty cop in the audience. He gets knocked out. He goes up on stage. They have him do crazy stuff. Oh, the guy next to you farted and it smells bad, that kind of thing. But then he tells the people up on stage, he doesn't know this guy's a cop. He said, all of you are police officers and you're breaking in on a party and these people are attacking you right now. The cop pulls out a concealed firearm and starts firing into the crowd.
Oh, my.
The moment a context is changed, you can manufacture human behavior. So if I can modify the context, I can take a normal person and they become a murderer. So it's very, very powerful. And it's one of the biggest things that we teach at NCI, which is my company, Neurocognitive Intelligence. So when it comes to a social frame, the person who decides the context typically has both of these things. It's A, the person that is reacting the least to the other person, and B, the person who needs the least from the interaction. However, when it comes to establishing some kind of frame, I will say there's a third thing that is whoever is least dependent on an outcome will determine the frame because they're having more fun, they're more in the moment, and most of all, during this interaction between these two people, and it's not because they're doing this as tactics, and I hate to throw these out there and be like, oh, you need to treat people like you don't care about them, or like you need the less than the other person. That's not what I'm saying at all, and I hope nobody goes that route. What I am saying is the moment that I can get to a place of, I want to connect with you, and me just connecting with you is more important than this contract that we're talking about. That's what I mean. I need less than you do when it comes to an outcome in the situation. That means I get to have fun. And most of all, I'm in front of my eyes during this conversation. And I will tell many of my clients, the more in front of your eyes you are in a conversation, the more that you're going to decide what happens. So my awareness is not just jammed back in my head. What do I say? Does he think I'm cool? Is he going to like me? Let me perform a little bit more. Let me smile a little bit more. If I'm not attached to an outcome, I become less performative and more genuine and more real. And we are so subconsciously attracted to that genuine nature. And I've watched a lot of your shows. And that's why I think your show is so popular, because you're not scripted and you don't use your smiles as a tool. You don't fake laugh if something's not funny. And that's why I think people are attracted to that. That's why Joe Rogan has more views than CNN. We see this stuff everywhere. We're starving for authenticity. And the way to get authenticity is to stop being dependent on an outcome and stop using your smiles and behavior as a tool to get something from someone else.
Yeah, I'm jumping in here because this is hitting me between the eyes as a guy who's been married 27 years. You know, I'm trying to learn here. So I got to get to a place where if there is a point of contention between my wife and I love this phrase of getting in front of my eyes. And I want to go a little bit deeper into that because I get what you're saying conceptually, but I want to revisit. And so if I'm in a moment of contention, we're not yelling and screaming, but it's confrontation, but I want it to be healthy.
Yeah.
Am I hearing you right that what I've got to do is put myself in a posture or in a place where it's not that I don't care, but it's that I'm not focused on an outcome of that, what would benefit me. It's just, I want to hear her. I want to understand her. Is that what I'm taking away from this?
Yes. And typically when people are outcome driven, the outcome is I need to show them that they were wrong.
Yes.
Or I need to prove that I wasn't wrong, at least. Or that I'm right.
I feel like that's me. I feel like that's
Yeah.
what the culprit in a marriage relationship is. I'm trying to prove that, hey, you're a little pissy at me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make my point because I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I don't want to interrupt other than to say that I really resonate with that. So take that example using me as the bad guy on this one, because I find myself doing that in arguments with my wife.
Let me use another example here. One of the best things that I ever saw on the internet, it was like a meme of some kind, was this guy and a dog sitting at a bench, and they're looking away from you. They're just kind of looking out over this mountain. And over the guy's head is this thought bubble that's got the stock market, a cell phone, police stuff. It's got a newspaper. It's got like 50 different things here. And then there's a thought bubble over the dog's head that has an exact image of what they're looking at.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And the bottom of the picture just says, why dogs are happier.
Yes.
So that's the example of, can I fully be in this moment? Because the moment that I'm kind of outcome dependent, I start slipping into the future. The moment I get like, oh, I screwed this up in the past, or here's all the things she did wrong last week, I'm slipping back into the past. So like when I'm in front of my eyes, I'm here fully in this present moment. And it doesn't have to be a whole bunch of like Zen stuff like that and mindfulness and all that. Just like I'm in front of my eyes because I'm fully here. Going back to Andy Griffith, that's what you definitely see a perfect example of in Andy Griffith. The composure, presence, and being in front of your eyes. And when it comes to setting that frame, the frame of an interaction is defined by the person who is not outcome dependent. So you're not dependent on the outcome, and you're willing to need less than the other person. So, and that's what I was going to tell you about, Ken. Like if I need to say, hey, let me just show you how you're kind of being mean. I'll say that nicely. Let me show you you're kind of being mean. That is me needing her to feel a certain way.
Yes.
So that is me needing more from the interaction. If it's in a contracts negotiation, we need to figure out a way that we're not outcome dependent. Let's figure out a way for this to be win-win. How can I change my mindset so that the moment everything happens, I believe in what's going on and myself 10 times more than the other person. That is the number one thing to get down. I believe in my version of what's going on 10 times more than the other person. And not more than like in an argument. I don't mean it in that way. I believe in like, this is the situation right here. And I'm kind of defining it. So she might get up and start yelling. I'm in front of my eyes enough to say, I'm owning this situation. I'm going to reframe all of this yelling as a tiny little mistake, or she is misunderstanding something that I did. And I need to kind of jump in here even deeper and figure it out. And that's, I don't often do the marriage thing, but I think that translates over exactly the same as it would for a negotiation.
Hey, I want to tell you about our friends at Delete Me. Here's a fact for you. Your personal data is everywhere on the internet. And I'm not talking about just your name. We're talking about things you don't want out there. Home address, phone number, names of your kids, and that's just getting started. And we can thank the data broker sites that sell our data. Then that data ends up in the hands of online thieves who use it in scams and phishing attacks. And here's the worst part. Even if you think you've cleaned up your digital footprint, your personal info can pop back up without any warning. And that's why I'm proud to recommend Delete Me. They are the industry leader at scrubbing your info from hundreds of data broker sites, and not just one time. but they do this continuously. Then they send detailed reports showing what they've removed and from where. Now, if you have a unique situation, they've got specialists standing by that can help. Folks, this isn't about paranoia. It's about being prepared. It's about protecting you and your family. So don't wait for a phishing scam to catch you off guard. Go to joindeleteme.com/front-row-seat today and use the promo code FRONT-ROW-SEAT for 20% off an annual plan. That comes out to just $9 a month. Go to joindeleteme.com/front-row-seat. Okay, let's talk about emotional gravity. This is something else that I really love the way you describe emotional gravity in relation to why do we mess good things up? You know, it's like things seem to be going well, and then just our humanness. And I want you to explain emotional gravity, because I learned a lot just a little bit of reading about this. Take it away.
So typically, when it comes to like I keep or I always, when someone says I keep or I always, that's typically some kind of a gravity situation. And what I mean by emotional gravity is I'm emotionally drawn towards a type of person or a type of situation.
Yes.
And I'm not realizing that our brain is wired to finish stories. We have a very tough time with what we call open loops. And in psychology, this is called the Zeigarnik effect. And when it comes to emotional gravity, I might have had an incomplete story that I wasn't able to help mom, become a better person. I wasn't able to get mom off of alcohol. I wasn't able to do X with my dad. Or, we have all these stories. It's not mom and dad all the time. Sometimes it's our friends in high school. Sometimes it's a middle school bully. But we have these incomplete circles that are in our lives. And as adults, we have this yearning unconsciously. We yearn to complete that loop. And since that person's not around anymore, or the circumstances are different, I'm going to find a similar co-star, and then I'll put us back in the scene. Let's adjust the lights and get the scene just right so we can finally finish the scene and close it off and get some kind of closure from it. And most of the people that I work with are just stuck in some kind of emotional gravity loop where they're trying to either complete or recreate some story. Recreating being, I might be the aggressor this time if I was abused. So I'm going to grow up and I'm going to recreate the same scenario. Or if I was abused, we could have these two outcomes. I could be abused, and then I'll get into a scenario where I kind of recreate it so I can complete the cycle, because I wanted to punch my dad growing up so much, and I never got a chance to. And now I'm going to find the situation where I'm in that again, and I can actually complete this little story arc. Our brains are wired for story. Carl Jung wrote like 50 freaking books about this stuff.
Yeah. Interesting that when you lay that out, does it also keep us as a victim because it's what we know and it fits the narrative? So I was talked to this way. This is what happened to me. That's all I knew. And even though it wasn't good for my nervous system adjusts to that. And so I go recreate this, or I go find it so that I'm back to the familiar. So it also keeps us, if I'm understanding this, it does keep us in a victim state a lot of times as well. Or maybe not victim state, but it does keep us stuck in that we're used to the rut and we like the rut.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, what happens is peace feels like absolute chaos because your nervous system is wired for conflict.
Yes.
And I say that it's only temporary. Like it takes a while to get into a place where like I'm actually experiencing peace. It feels weird. One, because your nervous system's wired for it. Two, because we have a story, and our entire identity is a story. That's why Alzheimer's is so sad when we see somebody get Alzheimer's. It's devastating because the story is going away. And number three, we have identity about that. We've made so many I am statements, the two most powerful words in the world. We've made those statements so many times that if I go against it, what do I have? I have cognitive dissonance. That's not who I am. I'm doing something that's against my identity. And this is even in the Bible when they ask, like, who should I say sent me? He asks what God's name is, and God says, I am. And that is a pretty powerful, profound thing that whether or not you read the Bible or anything is irrelevant. I think it's a cool book, and I think it's got some stuff in there that can help us. That I am is very powerful. And as we go through our lives, sometimes we grow up with a really crappy narrator, and we never realize that we are the hiring, firing, and HR department inside of our head, and we can fire that narrator. But the first step to firing that narrator is to realize that it probably has a child's voice, and we just hear it like an adult.
With your background, with your training, someone who's listening or watching today, they're lacking in confidence. Maybe they're dealing with a lot of self-doubt right now. You know, and it's kind of in line with what we've just been talking about, but how can we, in a healthy way, build our confidence?
Okay, so I take people on like serious deep dive retreats on a regular basis. Okay. And this is not like seminar stuff. We're doing, we have guided kind of journeys and things like that down in Mexico. And it is a profound transformation. But over my 30,000 hours of doing this work and talking to people my whole life, the number one thing that every human being is carrying is a failure to forgive themselves.
Wow.
Number one. And they're like, oh, I'm lacking confidence, or oh, I don't have enough discipline, or oh, I don't feel like I'm the right person that can go into this meeting, or I'm gonna crumble. It starts with dropping that backpack and being delusionally, wildly, ridiculously self-forgiving. And that's the number one thing. And I will venture to say confidence is never, ever, ever something you're going to learn about and like learn some skills to build confidence. When you were 4 years old, you were absolutely confident. Right. So it's built in. It's still there. What is preventing confidence from really shining through is this wrapping paper that we started learning. Like we're in second grade. Like I was in second grade, I wore a pink shirt, and someone called me a derogatory word that you can't say now. I put a little piece of wrapping paper on that part of myself, and then a little more wrapping paper, a little more wrapping paper. The confidence is there, and it's not about learning new tactics and tricks. It's about what needs to be stripped away. You were already confident before in an unlimited capacity, and you were confident in a way that you never thought about hierarchy and status.
Mic drop. I'm telling you, that is some serious depth. You know, interesting. I'll share this. I don't know if there's a correlation. I'll let you decide. But I was just giving a talk last week, and I shared a story about NASA hiring a guy by the name of George Land. He was a social scientist. And NASA hired Land to study genius in kids because NASA was trying to figure out how do we identify genius so that we could eventually get them to work for us. That's the quick setup. And so he went and studied all these kids, and he found that 96% of 5-year-olds tested out as geniuses. But the number dropped into the 30s, low 30s, when they got to the age of 10. And then they tested a group of 250-some thousand people that were average age 31, and it was like single digit that registered as geniuses. And I'm only sharing that because when I thought what you just said was so profound, that we are hardwired by the Creator with boundless wonder. And that speaks to George Land's study. These kids were just so imaginative because their wonder muscle, for lack of a better phrase, is off the charts. And so as the curiosity and imagination gets beat out of us, the genius gets taken away from us. That was the whole point and I was setting up a completely different talk. But I just made me think when you said that a 4-year-old is super confident, you're right, because they just don't have any damaging narratives at all. I thought that was so profound. Do you see a correlation between that study and what you just said?
I do. And if we go back to that same thing that we were talking about, is that fear of social judgment is what makes us start putting that mask on. Mm-hmm. And that mask is typically, I'm going to keep putting it on, but there's going to come a time, maybe I'm 6, maybe I'm 7, but it feels, I still feel a little uncomfortable behind the mask. So to make it feel a little better, I'll judge someone for doing something that I'm hiding behind my mask. And I'll judge them for it. So I think a lot of judgment comes from witnessing people do something that we do a better job of hiding.
It's obvious what you love. It's very obvious when you listen to you. You love this work. And I want to know, how would you describe the results that you are contributing to the world that most motivates you to get you up and keep you going?
I think, have you seen the movie They Live?
Yes.
I feel like I'm the guy handing out glasses to people. Like the secret glasses that let you see an entire layer of reality that nobody even realizes is real, even though it's like right here. It's all right here. You just need this new lens.
And why? Why? What in your story? What is it about those results that resonate with you? That tuning fork is going off inside of you. I could see it on your body when you described it.
Just watching someone, I think I'm addicted personally. I think I'm addicted to watching someone's face when they start making that shift and they're like, "Oh my God, I had no idea this was all out here." I love doing that because I know that A, it's great for them. B, that's going to taper down once they pass that mark of like, you can't unsee this stuff. Once I get them past the tipping point, that's going to affect their kids and their grandchildren. They're going to pass down these lessons of composure and leadership, how to understand people better, seeing people as reasons, all of these things they're fantastic and they make you powerful at the same time. So I think it's just the most amazing tool in the world.
Is that because something like that happened to you at some point and you went, "Oh, I want others to taste this"?
So I was 19 or 20. I was studying pickup. You remember this? It was big back in the day. I was so into this, like these little tricks to make girls like you and pay attention to you. You're kind of like tricking their brain into like essentially going on a date with you or XYZ. And
that's got to be the most natural number one goal for a 19-year-old male. Nothing to be embarrassed about there.
Yeah. Well, the next part I think is what embarrassed me at the time. I had read these books for like a year, and I thought, like, this is it. This is the stuff right here that I want to really go into. And I had lunch one time with my mentor, who was 74 at the time, and he's a retired Intel kind of a guy. And I brought this book, and I was really, I'm not going to say the name of the book, but I brought this like pickup book, and I put it on the table. I was like, "Man, you really got to read this. This is like next level stuff." And without skipping a beat, didn't look down at the book, and he goes, "Do me a favor." I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He takes a bite of food, just like so casual. He goes, "I'll pay you $100 if you can find something in that book that isn't telling you how to fake like you're a man and fake like you have your stuff together." And I did not make $100.
I'll bet. Wow. So he really does get a lot of credit for not even helping you in the moment, but being a catalyst to all of the help that you are giving to people. That old dude, Indeed. What was his name? I think we need to honor him. What was his name?
Milton.
Gotta love the Miltons of the world. I got goosebumps all over my body because Milton is responsible for so much help and positive change. I wrap all of our conversations with a takeaway that I'm going to be working on, folks. And there's so much I wrote down. But I think the thing, and it's difficult for me to share, but I need to share it. I am going to be really thinking about slowing down in those two areas, slowing down my speech, slowing down my body movements, not just in work meetings, but also around my 3 teenagers, around my wife, around my friends. I think that I have come from such an intense childhood, and my nervous system, go, 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 go. I'm fast, talk fast, all this stuff. And I think that is not only going to help me in how I attach to people, but I think it's also going to help me become even more aware of everyone else, which is going to make me a better human. So I just thought that was so great. I'm going to spend a lot of time reflecting on that. I challenge you to reflect on that some more, but also where in this conversation did Chase say something that you said, that hits me where I am. That's the whole point of these conversations, is to get better so that we can move up and lead well in our professional life. Chase, I got to tell you, I could interview for 3 more hours. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a lot that I will reflect on and continue to learn. I know your time is extremely valuable, and you invested in me and our audience today, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here.